Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining this webinar on creating family photo books. We are going to do this, we'll be pretty well ready to be finished, have the book completed by the end of the webinar, so that's kind of exciting. I'm going to walk you through this. You'll be able to see my screen as we go. And when we get to, we'll just go through and we'll walk you through it. How's that? That's just easier. So what we're going to do to start is we are going to go to forever.com. Most of you will have clicked on there to upload some photographs to an album or to your library to make it more accessible and make it a little bit quicker for us tonight. If you're not sure, I'm not sure if you can see this panel, so I'll just move it out of my way. I'm not sure if you can see this. So in here, you have the choice of library or albums. All right. You're going to go into albums. And this is where you're going to, if you haven't already, create your album for the purpose of doing your book. So those of you who haven't done that will just have to play along because we're not going to have a lot of time in order to be able to do that tonight. But as you can see, this is really incredibly user-friendly. You know, I've got over 13,000. So one of the things when you're up in here, I don't know if this is true. So what it has here is I have used 61% of 30 gigs. So I've got maybe about 35, 40 gigs used, and I have well over 13,000 photographs in here. I've been really, really incredibly fortunate because I've been the family memory keeper. And I've been trusted to be given the old family photographs and current family photographs as well. And it's just been such a joy. And really for me, having family history photographs and having the family history stories, for me, it's all about sharing. That doesn't belong to me. I may be the keeper of them and the curator of them, but it really is a matter of them all belonging to the entire family. And so I've done a number of things to make sure that people get to enjoy the photographs as much as I do. I've made, for 11 years, I did a quarterly family newsletter. I've created a number of family books. In fact, that was me starting into genealogy, was I created a family history book. I didn't know that's not how you start. And I know so many of us have this and we want to be able to do a book, but it's just such a daunting task. You don't know where to begin and you're just so overwhelmed that you don't. So I'm going to make that hugely user-friendly for you tonight and make it so simple that you're going to want to make more than one. Although not tonight, we're not going to make more than one. So while you're on here on this homepage with me, you're going to go over to this tab here that says Photo Books. And you can pick the design that you want. Yeah, when it says here starting at $19.99, just a word of warning, that's going to end up being more money. And the reason it's more money is because you're probably going to end up having more than 21 pages, which is fine. It's another $1 a page. Just be aware of that, because I know I've done this myself, and I've started out, I use their artisan program, and the books are a little bit more expensive. I think they're about $49 or $59 to start with, and then of course I just keep going and going and going and going until I've got everything in there that I want, and it winds up being $70, and I think, oh my gosh, how the heck did it get to be that? But you'll also notice down here it says 40% on all printed projects. So this is the code to get 40% off for June, but fairly regularly, if not every month, then every 2 or 3 months, there's always a big sale. So I've spent time and I'll create a book and then I put it into, I'll get it ready to be printed. And then I just don't put it in my cart. I don't buy it. I wait until the sale comes in and then I cash in when the sale is in. So it's not going to go anywhere. It's going to stay up there. And you can go ahead and do that as well. And, the next time they have a sale, if you miss out this time, then just go ahead and do it next time. I know that there's always a huge sale around Black Friday. There'll be one around the 4th of July. So, as I say, there's always sales. So don't be discouraged if you wind up making a book that's, starts out to be sort of $50. It'll be a lot less than that by the time you buy it. So scroll down here till you see the design that you want. I know not all of you are going to want to use the family, the vintage family photo one. However, that's the one that I think we're going to work our way through. So this one starts a little bit more money because it's got a little bit more detail in it. Oops, that's not the one I wanted. Let's try that again. I want this one. Okay. And then you get to choose the size that you want. So I can do an 8x8, I can do a 12x12, I can do it in softbound, I can do it in hardbound. So I have used the hardbound. I've not yet made a softbound book. I've made a number of hardbound books, and I vary the size between 8x8 and 12x12, depending on what it is that I'm using the book for. I just recently actually created a Crawford family book. That's my mom's line. There were 22 children in my mom's family, so you can imagine the size of the book. And I created that. It's probably about the 7th or 8th one I've done that's Crawford based. And I created that. And because it was supposed to be for me to keep, I did it in 12x12. Now, as it wound up, I gave it to my uncle when I was in Scotland. But I'll show you again. I mean, it's absolutely no problem for me to go and to get that book back again. Unlike traditional scrapbooking, where it's, you think, oh my gosh, now I got to go and do the whole thing over again. So I am, for this purpose, I'll go ahead and I'll choose the 12x12. You can choose the 8x8. They're going to be exactly the same layout, so don't be intimidated. Okay, and so this is what you get. There's the front cover, and there's each of the pages. Okay, so this is the way that it's set up. It's a template. It's dead easy to use. You literally just pop your photographs in there. All right, and then you can do some other wonderful things like I'm going to do right now. I am going to add a page. And I am going to start my book with journaling. There's not a lot of, in these pre-designed books, there's not a lot of opportunity for narrative the way there is in the Artisan. Although that's not a problem, you just simply add a page and do it yourself. So that's really not a problem at all. So I've got my page here. Just let me move this taskbar out of my way again. Okay. So I'm going to work on this page, hopefully. All right, so in order to get started, we'll come back to that in a second. In order to get started, I am going to add a photograph in here. Now, I've got this already in my albums. This is in my library. So up here, I can change from my library to albums to make it a whole lot easier. I have called this McDonald Family Book, so that's my dad's line. And there's the photographs that I'm going to use to create this book this evening. Okay. So the first one that I want, I think I am going to do, let me see. Well, you know what? Let's just start it with this photograph here. All right. So, and then I can enter text in here, and I'm simply going to put in, good grief. Okay. And I'm going to save the changes. Now, it does say in here that if I didn't put anything in there, then nothing would be printed, and it won't say enter text either. You literally will get nothing written in there, and that's fine. This is my problem with a touch screen. So this also has the opportunity for text. I'm not going to do that. So it's going to come out blank when I go to print the book. All right. If I want to rearrange the pages, let me see if that's at the top. Yep. So if I want to rearrange the pages, I can go ahead and do that in here. All right. Now, if this had been my mom's line and the Crawfords, and there are, 100 kids, it would be dead easy for me to fill up pages where there are tons and tons and tons of photographs. It's not going to be that easy in my father's family because there weren't 20 kids, there were 8. And so I, at some point, may decide that I'm going to delete these or I'm going to move some of them to the back. It doesn't matter how I decide to do it. But I think at the beginning here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take page, good grief, sorry, bear with me. This has been a bug of mine since I got it. I keep my finger in the wrong spot and I wind up. So if you I'm going to take page 12 and I'm simply going to move it so that it now comes into being the page 1 on my book. All right. I can save the changes. And then in here, I can go ahead and I can add my grandmother. Okay. I can do in here, I can call her grandmother. I'm actually going to call her Granny Haddo because that's what we called her, even though she was Granny MacDonald. And then in this text here, married June 1886. Okay, so you can get just a little bit of text in there sort of to share the story with people. And then that's now going to show up. And then if I want, I can go ahead and do a whole story here about Maggie's family. Now, what I could do, it's quite simple. So this is Roots Magic, where I have my stories. This is actually isn't about Maggie, but this is about her father. So this is Hugh. Sorry, it's about Archie's father. This is Hugh, and I can simply copy and paste this into a Word document. I can go ahead and clean it up if that's what I want to do. Make sure the grammar is correct. I'm not going to do that so that you guys aren't sitting watching me go through all of this, but and I can make the sentences a bit longer because at this point it's just in basically in bullet points. But you can go ahead, write his story in there, and then when you're ready, simply copy and paste it in here. All right, and now you've got the story on the page. So it really is incredibly easy to use. You can change the page design on this one if you want. Again, you can do, any of them. I can't even remember what that one looked like. So let's go ahead and just put this one in. Actually, let's do a different, okay, let's do that one. Okay, so I'm still on Maggie, and I'm going to do Maggie when she was older. I can go ahead and put in here, the story of Maggie. Maggie was a Sunday school teacher. Well, she's actually a Now, one of the things that I might want to do in here, because it's a story that's been passed down, and that's another part of the family history is the story. And so my father could never understand how his mother always knew when he had skipped school. And he figured that there must have been some sort of teacher telepathy or something, because in those days they didn't have cell phones, they didn't even have telephones. And any time that he had skipped school, by the time he got home, his mother knew. And he could never figure it out. He figured there must have been some sort of teacher pipeline, and the teachers somehow were able to telepathically tell each other who was in their class and who wasn't. And it wasn't really until he was an adult that she said, he was telling the story to one of his friends, and he said, I never understood how come she knew that. And she said, well, I'll tell you how I knew. I knew because whatever color dye was being run for at the carpet factory is the color you would come home in. So my dad would take off from school and he would go down to the local creek, the river, and he would paddle around in the river and swim around in the river, and he would spend his day in the river if it was sunny, and he would come home blue, or he would come home yellow, or he would come home red, depending on what color carpets they were running in the carpet factory that day. And so I could then go ahead and write that story in here and click save, and then my children and grandchildren will always have that story and know about my dad. And well, I don't know that we want them to know that he had bothered skipping school, but it's just one of those fun stories that you can go ahead and share. And in fact, what I did when I did the Crawford book, I did a lot of that. My grandmother was the storyteller in the family. My mother was a storyteller. My cousin and I used to, roll our eyes and sigh every time they got together because we knew we'd have to listen to the same stories. And now it's really important for me that my children know those stories. And so when I did the last version of the family book, at the end, I put those stories in and I put photographs in there to enhance it. Another thing that I have done was I wrote journals. I talked about this in last night's webinar on preparing for genealogy holiday. Journaling is so important, and that's another task that so many of us think, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Yeah, that's above my skill set, or it's just not something. I'm too intimidated. But I blog when I'm away. Any of you who follow me while I'm in Scotland, you'll see that. The kids and my husband and I did huge big road trips from 2003 till 2012. And every time we were away, I would blog so that people could follow along. And then when I got home, I would take all of that from the blog, I'd copy and paste it into a letter, add a little bit more detail, and mail it off to Scotland. And I saved those letters on the computer. And then a year ago, for Christmas, my husband is now gone. A year ago for Christmas, I took all of those letters that I had journaled and I put them into a family book. And so most of that book is actually text. And then I have a few pictures from each holiday just to enhance the story. And that was the gift that I gave my children for Christmas. And so, these books are just wonderful. They're heirlooms and things to be treasured forever. So I really encourage you. These templates are just so easy to do. It's not even funny. So again, you can go through, you can add whatever pictures you want. I'm talking so that you can go ahead and choose the photographs you want. I can take this page now. I can add photos just for the sake of adding them. I'm not going to, so this is my Uncle Archie. This is his son, David. That's their wedding. Actually, probably do that a little bit differently. Oh, shoot. Yeah, that's not what I wanted to do. So in here, I can move the photograph around. All right, just to make sure that it's centered. David and his aunt. Now this is coming up to tell me the resolution's low. That's okay. Honestly, it's not that big. If I were printing it in a full page 12 by 12, it would be a huge issue. When it's so small on the 12 by 12 album, it's really not that big a deal. I can zoom in here in these photographs if I want. I can rotate them so they turn. I can replace it if that's what I want to do. Okay. And there he is with his sister. Okay, so I want to zoom in a little bit on that. Oh, sorry. It's going to come in a little bit closer. Then I want to make sure that it's centered. Okay, and there we go. So that's that page done. I can then go along. I can do, I can put grandchildren in here. So what I've done historically, again, I'm not doing this in the order that I would normally do it if I was taking my time, really because I want you to, to realize how quick and how easy it is. So in here, I will just write, oh, McDonald, and I may put in his date of birth and date of death. I'd need to look that up at the moment. Put that in there. And then I can, so normally what I would do is I would take, this page would maybe be, I would have started with her mom and dad, or I would have put that she had married my grandfather. This page would be about him. And then I may do her family before she got married, his family before he got married, and then the next one would be, their children. So they had 8 children. So I would just kind of work my way through here with the children, and then I would do each child individually. So then I would go back and do Archie, just one picture. So I'll change this page design. So here I would just literally put in the photograph of Archie, and then I would add in photographs here of Archie and his wife. I'm reusing the photos just because I'm just doing the same person. And then here I would go ahead and I would add in, where's David? Oh, let's do. And then that's his sister actually. And then him. Okay. If I want, I can get them both in there. And then if I wanted, I could go ahead down in here. I could actually move this page where I had, so I can go ahead and put the text that I had, anywhere that I want in here, I can write the text. In this case, what I actually would have done would have been to write, Archie MacDonald was born to Hugh MacDonald and Catherine Lamond. He was the second son or the eldest son, and then that he married Maggie Haddo. Maggie was the third daughter, second daughter of to Walter Haddo and Mary McCabe, where they married, how many children they had, that sort of stuff. And I would just do the whole text thing. And then you can go ahead where it says rearrange pages. I would then just bring that forward. And I would have the story right in here. Okay. So in this case, what I've got, I'm going to save my changes. So in this case, what I've got is I have got, so I've got Archie. I've got Archie and his wife and their two children. And then I would just go ahead and actually, let me just rearrange that page again because I want it before this. So I would do it this way. Okay, and then I would have their story in here. Yep, that didn't work. Make sure you save the text. All right, and then I would maybe do the next child, Archie's brother, Walter. I'm gonna bring that down. Do Walter's child. They only had one child. So I might do one of Alice when she was older. She is with her mom and dad. All right. And again, I could add a page. I'm going to enter some text in here. Again, just for the sake of, working my way through this so that you're not sitting watching letter by letter, I'm going to go ahead and just do the cut and paste of the same story. Obviously, I'm not going to have this printed because it's not going to make any sense, but just really to show you how easy it really is. Save the changes, rearrange the pages, and I am going to bring the page that I just did up. And I'm going to put it right in here so it's right next to the story of Walter and his daughter. Okay, and then maybe what I would do is I would want this to go over here. Again, one more. And in here, I could go ahead and I could put a picture of Archie, and I could put a picture of the wedding picture for him and his wife, and then talk about their marriage in here. Actually, her name was Helen. We always called her Ellen. whatever in Rosewell. And David and Margaret. Oh, okay, so now look at this. This has said that I've entered too much text. So I can go ahead and I can remove some of this. Had 2 children. All right. Actually, let's change that. So I'll actually take this out. And I've got more space here. Archie as a minor. Okay. And then I would just go ahead and save those changes. And, I've got a lot more space, as you can see here. I could go and write quite a bit more story. I could talk about the children, David and Margaret. I could talk about the fact that David then married a nurse from Australia and subsequently emigrated to Australia. I could talk about his emigration. He went on the 10-pound scheme where he paid 10 pounds for his passage. He got there. They gave him a studio apartment. He had to stay there, I think it was 5 years. And then after that, he was free and clear to be a citizen. So, most people wouldn't know that if I didn't write it down and give that information for future generations. So really, as I say, sharing the story is really, really important. Back up in here, I can go ahead and I can put in here. I can put his date of birth and date of death if I want, and I can put in here. All right. And that's that just gives people an overview. So you can go ahead, you can fill in, just it's really, really easy, right? You're just going to literally click on here, add photos to your heart's content. Now, what I might decide to do, let me see if I do it at this point. No. So I'm going to rearrange the pages now, I think. Let me just work this one through. I'm not quite as sure. Okay, this is the way I do it. So right up in here, there's an X. Yes, I'm going to delete that page. All right. I'm going to delete this page. Okay. Again, I can go ahead, I can add pages, change pages, but remember we started out with 21. I've added a couple of pages and I'm still only at 21 pages. Okay. And then down in here, I used this actual layout for the most recent Crawford family book. And what I did was I did all the times where the siblings were together. So I would have photographs of them when they were together, when they were young. So I would do sort of this one in here. Not sure why this is deciding it wants to be. Oh, I guess that's all there are. Okay. So I'm going to zoom on it a little bit so we can see it a little bit better. So this is actually kind of an interesting picture. And I would probably do a little bit of a story about it because, in fact, every Friday night in my father's house, which was his father's house, the family gathered. They were very musical. Most of them were self-taught. And they would get together and they would have their own little ceilidh and they would play music and sing songs. My dad played the fiddle. He played the mouth organ. My grandfather was a fiddler. His father was a fiddler. And actually, my great-grandfather lost his eyesight with old age. And my grandfather adapted the bow so that he could still play, so that his dad could still play, and make it easier for him to be able to see where he was where the bow was supposed to be. So, those, and so it was every Friday night, the entire family got together. Quite often other people in the village would come. It would just be everybody gathered at the McDonald's on a Friday night. And so there was always that community spirit, that sense of family, and just the real joy in the music bringing them together. And so those sorts of stories are stories that I would want my kids to remember. And so again, I would go ahead and I would add a page in here, probably maybe after this whole two-page collage, and write in story about how they gathered and why they gathered, or why those pictures were important to me. We've got up here. Okay, so again, you're just going to go through and just, so I might do one here with just all little kids in it. I'm probably saying that, not sure that that's, so this actually was a Sunday school outing. That's not kids. Me and my daddy. Did you scan your photos to your computer? How do you upload them into the program? Yes, I did. So a couple of things. Most genealogists have a scanner. It just seems to be a tool of the trade. So I have more than one scanner, actually. I have, the printer scanner all in one. So I would scan onto that and then load it from there into my computer, save it in photographs, or save it in an album in my pictures. I also have a scanner that's does 8.5 by 11. Might do a little bit bigger than that, actually. It might do 8 by 14. Yeah, I think it does 8 by 14, but it's adaptable so that I can also scan negatives and I can scan slides. So again, I could do those. I could, retrieve our memories from slides that we had taken, or if I've lost the photographs in transit, I've still got the negatives and I can go ahead and make photographs out of those. Again, I would just take it from, once it's scanned, that scanner actually hooks into my computer just as the one for my printer does. And so it would just go into an album on my computer and I would upload from there. And if I use my portable one, which I think everybody has a portable one, the one I use is FlipPal. Absolutely love it, hands down. In fact, what I'll do, I believe Thomas McKenty is still a, what do you call it? Not an ambassador, affiliate for FlipPal. I'll see if Thomas would run a discount, because it is absolutely the most used tool in my trade, tool in my toolkit next to my laptop. I use it all the time. I love it because it's portable. It runs on batteries. I take it to Scotland. I've taken it out west. I've taken it, pretty well everywhere I've gone. And what I really like about it is I can sit and have a conversation with somebody for half an hour, and I can scan photographs while I'm talking to them. They're more than willing to give me the photograph to scan because I'm handing the photograph back to them. So they're not losing the photograph. Okay. And so they're keeping the photograph. I've got the image of the photograph. It's all put onto an SD card. I put the SD card into my laptop, move it all into a folder. So one of the things that, and then what I would do, of course, I want to upload. So I would just go ahead, choose a file from my computer. I don't know if I have any in here of McDonald's, but it probably doesn't matter. Oh, let's just go into FlipPal scans. Okay, these aren't McDonald's actually, but so I can go ahead and then I can just, decide however many I want and then upload them. All right. Now, what I really like is that they have changed the program. And so they have now told me that there are 5 duplicates in there. So I already have uploaded those into some other album, and I don't need to upload them again. Because I don't know how many times, I go through the family photos on my computer, and I'll go through different folders with pictures in it, and I think, oh my God, how many times do I have that? I must have it 7 times. But you don't want to delete it just in case it's just your memory playing tricks, right? This way I don't have to worry about it Forever's done that for me, so I can just go ahead, take this, and then upload them. So I can actually have this on, or I can have it off. I mean, if I want to have those in there, that's fine too. And then I'm done uploading. And those are now in my album, okay? And you can see that the ones that uploaded, the ones that were duplicated are not in there. Yeah, okay, Jim, no worries. I'm actually going to, I will, right after I get off this, off the webinar, I will contact Thomas and see if he will run a deal. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to do that. He's pretty good that way. Okay, and the other question was around changing fonts. Now, I don't believe in this program that you can change the font, but let's find out for sure. Let's go back up here to here, and let's see what it says if it gives me the chance to do that. Nope. Yeah, so there's no opportunity to change the font on here. It's pre-programmed. Okay, now when we talk about, so it's not actually till July, I'm going to do an overview of the Artisan program. The Artisan program is, so I can do a book exactly like this, but I can do so much more with it. I can put background papers in, I can add embellishments, I can put a whole lot more text in there, I can change the text, you know, I can wrap it around photographs, I can do just a whole lot more. So that tends to be the one that I prefer, just because it allows me so much more variety. Unfortunately, it's not friendly for a Mac user. So I would encourage anybody who is a Mac user and would like to have those features to go ahead and contact support@forever.com and let them know. I think the more people that let them know that that's something they're interested in, the more likely we are to have that be made available. So they have digital art and they have all kinds of stuff on there as well. All right, so once I've done my book, I just want to make sure I still only have 21 pages in here. Yes, I do. So we're going to pretend that this is finished just till I walk you through it. I'm going to add it to the cart. Double check your photo book. So it says photos are missing, right? Yes, I'm sure I'm going to add it to the cart. I'm not actually, of course, going to go through the motions of. So this is how it's going to look from that point forward. I can choose whether I want a glossy finish, matte finish, black padded leather, which you know, I'm probably not that interested in. I'm going to go ahead with a matte laminate, I think. Less fingerprint stuff. I want my papers to be white. Lay flat binding is fantastic. It's also expensive. You know, you get a whole lot more of the picture because it literally lays flat, 2 separate pages. You know, it's not closed in at the spine. So if you want the lay flat binding, by all means do that. I have done that in the past, and I only do it when there is a deal on. So right now the deal is 40% off. And so what's going to happen is you're going to have, you know, 40% off that $35 is going to take you down to about $18.50 or something. So it certainly would definitely be worth it in that event. All right, and then it says in here, this is giving me the details of what I've got. All right, and just a little blah, 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 blah. I'm going to add it to the cart. Okay. Okay, so it's $59.99 on this one because I have taken the 12 by 12 instead of the 8 by 8. I want one of them. And in here, those of you who got the $10 coupon, you are going to put your code in here. All right. And apply it. Now it's not going to work on here because I've already used this for something else, but that would then give you $10 off, which would take it down to $49.99. And then you're going to put, remember, Jingle June in here, and that's going to take 40% off. Okay, so now this $60 book is now down to $36. My code didn't work. It would have taken another 10 off of that, so it would have been $26. Now, if I had done the smaller book, I probably would be paying about $7 for it. So right now, while the sales are on and while you have that promotional code, absolutely now is the time to do it. Don't rush through it. you have until the 30th of June before the Jingle June expires. However, in order to use the code that you got, the free $10 coupon that you got, that has to be used within 30 days of you getting it. So you will get an email where that code was given to you. It is unique to you, so it can't be used by anybody else. If you go ahead and pass it on to somebody else and they use it first, then you won't get it because they are all, they're generated one at a time. So it's not like Jingle June anybody can use, but the codes for the $10 coupon, they're all different. And you can add as many of those in. I mean, if you have that and you have another $10 coupon from somebody else, go ahead and use it. So you go ahead and you do that. But when you get that email, when you get the email that gave you the $10 coupon, it will give you the expiry date. So make sure that you have your book done before then. However, I'm going to say to you, make sure you have your book done by the 30th of June because the 40% off is a whole lot better than the $10. And if you can get them both at the same time, it's an absolute bargain. Okay. It's in US funds, and yes, they do ship to Canada, and they ship it to, they use FedEx, I'm sorry. So what'll happen is, I'm not gonna, so it from here, I would go ahead and I would proceed to secure checkout. All right, it's already got all my stuff in here. So I can do economy at $16.99, or I can do, you know, what do you call that? Expedited for $29.99. So this in here, June 27th to 29th or 22nd to 27th, I'm telling you, this is going to be almost identical to this. I would not be paying the extra $13. That's the Scottish part of me. Absolutely would not be doing it. And then I can go ahead and I can proceed to secure billing. It stores my credit card and it just goes ahead. I confirm my order, place my order, and then I get a thank you thing pops up. I also then get an email telling me that I have ordered it. And if you're wanting to check, so if you don't get to this point, if you haven't finished, you're not going to upload it to your cart, that's fine as well. So what would happen is you're going to come in here down to print projects. Okay, so this one hasn't been ordered yet. I can go ahead and I can open this and then I can edit it to my heart's content. Okay, so in fact, I will do that. I'll go back and take my time and actually do the book that I want to do. Oh, that's a different print project. Sorry. Good heavens. So I can go ahead and I can, oh, for crying out loud, this drives me insane, honestly, nuts. Okay. So up here, I'm going to edit it. Yes, remove from the cart and edit. All right. And then I can, sorry, that's how I go ahead. And I can go ahead now and edit it to my heart's content. All right. I can also go to put this down a little bit more. I can go back in here and I can go and look at the order history. So this is the part that really sold me on forever. Two things that really sold me on forever when I had the opportunity to interview Glenn Meekum. Excuse me, Glenn had just started just a couple of years before I had the chance to interview him. He had just launched Forever. So forever.com also has a YouTube channel, and there are videos on there explaining the whole, why Forever sort of thing. And basically, he wanted a place for his grandparents were aging. He and his wife. I think the story is Glenn got married and then was deployed. Yeah, Glenn got married and then was deployed, maybe in the Army. And then when he returned from his deployment, they decided that they were going to spend time with family before they had their own family. And so Glenn and his wife bought a camera and they took a road trip and they went and visited all their living grandparents and they took photographs and they did audio recordings. And then when he got home, he wanted a place to store that so it would be stored forever. And he he looked everywhere on the computer. So he looked at Google, he looked at Picasa, which was available at that time. He looked at Shutterfly, Snapfish. There was just a whole bunch of them that he looked at. And the thing is, Facebook is another one where people store their photos. So the thing is that for a huge number of those, when you upload, the terms and conditions clearly state, of course, nobody reads the terms and conditions, right? It's all fine print. None of us bother. The terms and conditions clearly state you no longer own that. It now belongs to whatever company you have uploaded your photographs to. And Glenn didn't want that. He wanted to retain ownership of his photographs. He wanted it to be private so that the whole world wasn't able to see it. And then the other thing that he wanted was to, if he exceeded his storage, say on Dropbox or Shutterfly or whatever, and he had to pay, something happened and he defaulted on a payment, he didn't want to have to lose all those photographs. So he developed Forever. He wanted it to be there and he wanted it to be forever. So the key for Forever is that it is permanent storage. You pay money up front. It can be quite expensive. They have in the last year or so put in a monthly payment program. I paid for mine up front. It gives you 10 gigabytes, which is a whole lot of photographs. When you do that, they take the vast majority of that money. So basically what you're doing is you're buying cloud real estate. The vast majority of that money is invested in a guaranteed fund. And the money from that guaranteed fund, a portion of that is withdrawn to maintain the cloud storage for your lifetime plus 100 years. I'll show you when we go through it next week how you can how succession happens. It's private unless you make it not private, unless you invite people to share. You retain 100% ownership and copyright over all of your photographs. And so that was really, for him, that was the key. And the other thing that they do is they back it up. So it's backed up on 3 servers so that if one server goes down or gets hacked, the photos are still there on 2 other servers. They do a photo conversion service, which we'll also talk about next week. When they scan your photos, they scan it in full resolution and they store it in full resolution. So you'll notice if you upload to Facebook or you upload to any of the other sites and you go to then download, you don't get it in full resolution anymore. It's about 72 dpi instead of 300. So you lose a whole chunk of resolution, which then means if you go to print it or you go to put it in a photo book, you're losing the quality. And that doesn't happen in Forever. It's full resolution when you upload, full resolution when you download. These books as well, not in this one I don't think, but when I go to in Artisan, I can save any one of the pages as a JPEG, as a photo, and then I can post that. So I can, make a page and then I can post it so that my uncle in Scotland can see it, or so that my cousin in Vancouver can see it, or so that my cousin in England or Australia can see it. And it may just be their family. And then if they want to download that and keep it, I'm fine with that. So, there's just so much that you can do with this. Anyway, the other thing that really sold, so that was the number one thing that sold me. But the number 2 thing that sold me and probably actually became number 1, I was speaking with Glenn and, he was talking about this, 100-year lifetime plus 100 years. And you know what? You can't even fathom that, right? You honestly can't fathom. Really, 100 years after you live, who cares? But in reality, so I can go through here and I can see everything that I've ever ordered since time began with me on Forever, right? Everything that I've done is in here. And I said to him, so if my granddaughter, if I die and 10 years after that, my daughter has a child and wants to, order the book, can she? And he said, yes, absolutely. And he said, I'll even go you one better. If 10 years after your daughter dies, if your granddaughter wants to do it, she can go ahead and order it because it's always stored in here, right? So you can see how many pages of this I've got. Now, a lot of these obviously are digital downloads, but I also do have books in there that they can go ahead and they can order, 10, 20, 40, 50 years from now if that's what they want to do. And yeah, so here's one right here that I've already made, and I can download it. Sorry, that's the template. Actually, you know what? Let's go this way. Anyway, I think they can go ahead and they can order it. So that to me was the selling piece, that, that's still there. All of my hard work is still there. I used to be a traditional scrapbooker. I love scrapbooking. I found it incredibly relaxing. I found it incredibly rewarding, but you only ever get one copy of anything because it's so much work and it's incredibly expensive. And this way I can make as many copies of it as I want. Now, what had happened with, what's the next week? I'll tell you that in just a sec, Jim. So one of the things that happened, so I just did a book on, as I said, on the Crawfords. My plan at that time was to keep it. It was going to be my own. Every single one that I've ever made to this point has all been given away. And I decided this was going to be it. This was going to be the one that I was going to keep. And I wound up giving it to my uncle just because I love him and I gave in. And that's fine. Honestly, it's fine. He is starting with dementia, and that makes a really good memory book for him. And, I love him a bit, so I would have given it to him regardless. But the really fascinating thing for me is now, here's the book. So I can go ahead, see, they can go ahead and reorder it, right? The really fascinating thing for me is while I was in Scotland and doing some family history research, what I discovered, good heavens, what I discovered was that my grandmother had a baby that was stillborn. It was born asleep, as we say. And sorry, the child was born asleep. And so that we never knew about that baby. We had no idea that that baby had ever existed. My granny obviously knew because she always counted 22 children. We could only ever account for 21. What I can do now is I can go back in to that point in the family history tree, in the family tree. So I can edit this book. Let's just see. I can edit this book and I can create another page that just talks about, so this is my grandmother and grandfather. That's my grandmother. There's their children that they had. All right. And then I can go ahead. This is their oldest child, and it was right after him that, so in between Henry and Joe, there was a baby that was stillborn. I can now edit this book and add a page to remember that baby. There's a tree of tranquility where people who have lost a baby shortly after birth or just prior to birth, they can have a copper leaf engraved to remember the baby, and it's put on a tree in various locations in Scotland. And so I'm going to do mine. I just received it in the mail. I'm going to have it engraved to say that baby Crawford was born asleep, the date, and then who the parents were, and have it put on a leaf in the Borders area of Scotland, which is where the family were living at the time. And so I can take a photograph of the leaf. I can take a photograph after it's been engraved, and that's the way that we can go ahead and we can remember the baby. And I can write the story in there of how I discovered by going through layer records that this baby had been born, was stillborn, and where the baby is buried. So, I can always edit the book. So my book will be a little bit different than the one I gave my uncle because it's going to have the story of the missing baby in there. I may add another, at the very end of this book, I put in some of the family stories. I may add to that, and then my book would be a little bit different again. So, there's always so many options for what I want to do. Even though it's already been created, I can go ahead and do it just a little bit differently each time. So Jim, next week, same day, same channel, same time, I will be talking about the other services of Forever. So I'll be talking about photo conversion. I'll be talking about converting old home movies to digital format. We'll be talking about some of the other neat things about Forever, collaborative albums, sharing your albums, that kind of stuff. The week, so that's the 20th, and then the 27th, Mariana Curran, who is a senior executive ambassador, she is going to be available for an AMA, which is an Ask Me Anything, and you can literally ask her anything about forever, and she'll be more than happy to answer that for you. So if you still have any niggling questions about it. And I will once again send out the link to register for those if you're interested. Can I discuss what to do with old slides? So yes, and I'll actually be doing about that next week. So next week, I'll talk about how you can take your old slides and send those in, and they will convert those for you and put them in your album or your library. I personally have a scanner that allows me to do that myself. So it's really personal preference. I can send a whole bunch in and get those done quickly, or I can do them, take my time and do them my way. Either way, it's perfectly fine, and they both turn out to be the same resolution, and they both end up in the same place. They're in my Forever account forever, and that's always the good part of it. We'll talk a bit more about tagging photos and labeling them and all that sort of stuff. But for now, that's it. I hope that you get your family photo book done. You can see how dead easy and quick it is to do. Really, there isn't anything now at this point holding you back. You can go ahead. You can, like I say, you can make it whatever one of these you want. And it doesn't have to be family history. You could do your family Christmases. You could do family recipes. You could do family trips. You can do a picture of your kids from kindergarten to grade 8 or graduation. There's just a wealth of possibilities. But I really do encourage you to take advantage of being the curator for your family, having control of those and custody of those photographs. Make sure you get them into a legacy that's going to last beyond your lifetime, and where other people can enjoy what it is that you have created, and also get back those photographs and be able to know the family story. So again, I thank you all for your time and your attention. It's been absolutely fabulous. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to email me. And apart from that, I will see you all next week. Good night.